Hello, clan fans! Oh my goodness, I can't believe it's been 2 weeks. I hope all of you had a wonderful Easter, and hopefully the 2-week Outlander wasn't too bad. I mean, it gave me a chance to take a breather from all the drama, but I'm glad we are back. So Outlander returned with episode 7, and this episode was definitely intense because they are dealing with not only the aftermath of Malva's murder, but Claire is also a suspect pretty much to everyone on the ridge. We also had some drama with Lizzie in this episode, and she and the Beardsley twins have been up to something. Not malicious, but there's definitely a storyline in this episode for them, and I am excited to get to talk about that. So without further ado, let us talk about Season 6, Episode 7, titled Sticks and Stones. Interestingly, this episode actually began with a flashback where Malva is speaking to the church, and she is telling them how her innocence was taken away by a man, somebody she thought she could trust. Interestingly, she doesn't say who, which, I mean, you probably wouldn't, but it could be anybody, really. It's not Jamie. Definitely not Jamie. And based on how Alan acts in this episode, I would say they're sticking close to the book here. Because yes, it is probably Alan who not only impregnated his sister, half-sister, but still, it is possible he is also the murderer. But the way he acts in this episode, you really wouldn't know. Unless you really look at the clues. But yes, I thought it was interesting that they started with a flashback and we got to see Malva alive one more time. It almost felt like, because at one point, while they're examining Malva's body, Tom, Alan, Claire, and Jamie are there, and Tom's main concern is that she didn't have time to ask for forgiveness before she died. But this moment is almost kind of like her last chance to speak to not only the people in the church, but to speak to God. So it was interesting to start the episode with that, because from then on out, she's just dead. We don't see any more flashbacks. We don't hear her voice anymore. Interestingly, her spirit doesn't haunt Claire, because we see a lot of visions of Lionel in this episode, but not much with Malva. And the only thing we see of Malva is really just her dead body. Don't really hear her. So I thought that was interesting. But yes, they are pretty much just trying to figure out what happened to Malva in this episode. And Alan is very suspicious of Claire, or at least he wants to put the blame on Claire. Let's put it that way. Because, honestly, it's very easy to say somebody did something if the circumstances kind of match up. And unfortunately for Claire, they do. Because, like we know in the last episode, she had that fever dream. She even has seeds of doubt of herself, thinking that maybe, possibly, she might have actually done it. It is interesting to see that Claire is actually considering that she might have done this. And honestly, this is what is causing her to fight against using the ether again. Unfortunately, the visions and all the hallucinations and the hearing the voices of Lionel and everybody is just still eating away at her. And without using the ether, it is causing her like 10 times the stress that she was already having. And this is the episode where she really does reach her breaking point. And this is the moment that actually made me cry. So Claire actually learns that when she heard the knocking at the door, she thought it was Malva, but it turns out it was Lizzie going to tell her something, which I'll get to in a minute. But she is relieved for one moment this entire episode to learn that it's not her. And unfortunately, when she puts the ether mask away, the visions are still haunting her, saying just because she didn't kill her by her own hands doesn't mean she didn't play a part in her death. So that part of the guilt is still there in her. And at one point she just leaves the surgery. Jamie sees that she's distraught. He goes to check what's going on in the surgery but finds nothing. And Claire finally admits to him. She gets all of this off of her chest. She tells him that she's been seeing things, hearing things. She had a moment of doubt because she was using the ether, and she just finally admits everything to him, and she tells him the way that she copes, like she's always done this. She compartmentalizes everything until at this point she's finally not able to do that anymore. And he's trying to be comforting to her, but she tells him like she's afraid that the voices are never going to go away and that she's always going to be haunted by everything. And this is where I just broke down into tears, because I know how she feels. I understand it, because I don't have hallucinations like her, but the mind and the memory can really be, as they say, the devil, because sometimes things just play back in your head over and over again. All your past mistakes, all the bad things that happened to you. And I have been having that a lot lately. And I really can relate to Claire with that. And I think it wasn't just feeling sadness for her, but I was feeling sadness for me too, because we both have had to go through things. And obviously she's gone through completely different things, which, yeah, she's been through so much. And I do feel so much sympathy and empathy for her, but also just because I can relate so much to her. And just in that moment, I felt seen, I felt heard. And I love how Outlander, they really cover these topics. And that's one reason why I love the show, not just because of the romance and the adventure, but because they deal with topics that not too many shows deal with. And do you know how many shows I've seen on TV that are just... there's no heart to them, there's just... I can't even explain it, but if you guys know the 90s, they had all these sitcoms that had heart, they talked about things, they had lessons in them. You don't see that too much anymore. And that's what I love about Outlander. It actually has lessons in it, it has moments that people can relate to and understand. And that is definitely a major reason why I love the show. It's a rare gem in this time. And I'm grateful, like I said, that they cover these topics. And I know a lot of people didn't like the ether situation, but at the same time, as bad as it was that Claire did it, and it's not good, I don't recommend it, but I appreciate that they used this to help with a healing moment, you know? And she hopefully will not use the ether again now that she has talked to Jamie and that he has comforted her with all of this, telling her that they'll get through it and that she should never feel selfish for being there, or that her selfishness brought happiness to people, even if it brought bad things at the same time. It still made good things happen. And that's honestly how we all have to view our own presence, you know? that we are here. Bad things will always happen, but sometimes our presence makes a good difference. And we don't always see it, but it happens. And I love that they covered that on the show. And they did it perfectly, I think. So I say bravo to the writers. Bravo to Sam and Katrina for the scene. Thank you for this. Alright, I'm going to talk about the lighthearted part of the episode now that I've talked about all of that. So, Lizzie definitely had... This was like the biggest episode for her, honestly, because she's technically kind of hiding the Beardsley twins. We don't know why at first, and Ian promises to keep it a secret, and then we eventually learn that Lizzie is with child, and she had the child, or she conceived the child with one of the Beardsleys. However, she was with both of them at the same time, and we don't know which one it was, I think that was in the book. But honestly, just the way this was all handled in the end was I appreciated the good laugh at the end. Because Jamie, once he finds the Beardsleys, he gives them each a straw, and whoever gets the short straw, or this is probably an allusion to short end of the stick here, it ends up being Kezzy who gets the short straw, and that is who is to marry Lizzie. However, Jamie can only handfast them, and eventually he'll have somebody marry them. However, because Josiah was told to leave until Lizzie has the child, Lizzie goes behind Jamie's back. I didn't see the scene coming, but it was... Like I said, I appreciated this moment. She goes to Roger, she and Josiah, and they tell Roger and Bree that she's with child, and she tells them that she wants Roger to handfast her and Josiah. And I don't know if this is how it happened in the books, but if it didn't, I appreciate the show's creativity here. But yeah, basically Roger does this unknowingly. He doesn't realize that she's already handfasted to Kezzy, so Lizzie was very sneaky here. And eventually Roger learns that she was handfasted to Kezzy, and they're like, whatever, it'll be what it is. At least they're not married. But I think eventually they do, all three of them end up getting married, which I don't know how that plays out. But life on the ridge, people. But yeah, just that whole subplot, it was just really funny. Lizzie's line earlier where she's like, they're identical everywhere. Honestly, just, can we give a gold star to Lizzie in this episode? I appreciate that she brought some levity to all the heaviness that was going on. If there was a better time for this to happen, this was probably the best time. Even if they were concerned about it happening with all the Malva drama, I appreciated the comedy of it all. Also in this episode, Roger has decided that he officially wants to become a minister, and Bree's a little concerned about him becoming a minister full-time because, just like her mother, it took up a lot of time and it takes people away from their families because they're constantly on call. However, Roger says that he will always put his family first, and they'll find a way to make it work. So I guess at the end they go into town to see if he can get ordained. I'm pretty sure that's what was happening. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what it's like with Roger as the minister. I honestly like that Roger has just, again, stepped up in this, in this season and he's just really taking on a lead that we never thought we'd see after season 4. But yeah, I just love seeing his character growth, and the season is really showing it. And he also confronts Mr. Bug in this episode because the bugs have been flying around shooting their mouths off. And unfortunately, Jemmy's getting scared because of all the rumors about his grandmother being a murderer. And honestly, the bugs are the worst. I love how Mrs. Bug earlier was trying to tell the Frasers, like, oh, I knew Malva was trouble from the start. Didn't you think so, Mrs. Fraser? Almost like she's goading her into revealing her true feelings for Malva. I don't know if that was the intention, but I'd say that is a possibility, because Mrs. Bug is a gossip queen. And honestly, I don't know why they keep her around. Do they owe her a debt? And Mr. Bug, he's not much better. And he doesn't care that Jemmy's hearing this stuff. That's life. Who? Honestly, I don't know. I think there's supposed to be a subplot with them at some point. I don't know if we're going to see that. Probably not this season, because it feels like it would be very random in the finale with all that's going on. But it's possible in season 7 we'll see it. Yeah, honestly, the bugs can just go somewhere else. I also want to mention that I did not know this when I watched episode 6, but apparently Katrina Balfe was actually pregnant when filming the scene where she finds Malva dead. And honestly, that just added a whole layer to that moment, because in that moment, you know how she's trying to save the unborn child, and she's just so distraught in that moment. And when I learned that she was pregnant during that, I realized that wasn't probably just acting, but imagine like all the emotions that Katrina was going through. Like, wow. But yes, Katrina is truly amazing with these scenes, and just her moment where she's again talking about all that she's been going through. Why has this woman not been nominated for Emmys? I don't know if it's because they filmed the show in Scotland, because it's an international production, I don't know. I'm sure there's rules where they can nominate, but despite those factors, but seriously, she and Sam Heughan deserve all the awards. Do you hear me, award shows? I don't get it. But yes, truly, they did an amazing job. Honestly, this whole series, they've done an amazing job, but this episode especially, I give Katrina like gold star for bringing the emotion, and just, again, that scene really touched my heart, touched my soul, and again, I can relate to it. And I'm glad that they wrote that in there. Another moment of drama that happens in this episode is the funeral for Malva. So Tom's not too crazy about burying his daughter as well as his grandchild, who was never baptized, but they are going to be buried on the ridge. And honestly, Tom's fairly silent at the funeral. It's Alan who shows more of an attitude. At one point, when they're all called up to carry the casket out of the church, Jamie goes to be one of the pallbearers, but Alan says, not him. so Ian takes his place. I thought that was going to be the one piece of drama there, but I kind of understand why Claire does this. She, at this point, feels responsible for what happened to Malva. She goes to carry the casket of the baby and to bring it outside, but Alan catches her doing this, and he goes full crazy mode on her. He does not want her carrying the casket at all. He blames her for everything that happened, and just, he will not have it, and he takes the casket himself. And honestly, this moment, if anything, proved to me that he's definitely the father of the child in show terms, because of how protective he was being. And honestly, even if he killed Malva, he could still be conflicted about what he did. And sometimes in moments of rage, people don't think clearly about what they're doing. And he probably didn't think about the fact that he wasn't just killing Malva, but also killing his unborn child. And probably realized it when it was too late. I don't know. That's just my assumption. But just the way he acts, it's very protective. Like overprotective, but also like he's hiding something in a sense. But I think he's also still just trying to deflect the blame on Claire, because that's what's keeping him out of the woods, out of trouble. But it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the final episode. I honestly wonder if they're gonna leave it on a cliffhanger, because good old can't even say it. Committee of Safety has returned to arrest Claire at the end of the episode, and it looks like they're going to be dealing with all of that in the final episode. They don't show what happens after they surrender, so I don't know if most of the episode is going to be them trying to avoid having Claire being taken away. I don't know. But Lionel Brown's brother, Richard Brown, isn't much better. And I just hate seeing them in the middle of this, because it's bad enough that Claire is being talked about on the ridge by their own people, and they're all gonna turn on them in the final episode. Like, that's gratitude for you. Honestly, why did they invite these people? I know you need settlers, but find people that are like you. Surround yourself with people like you. If you can. But these people are just so easily turned, and they have no problem turning against people, and it's just maddening how it happens. And I know it probably happened a lot in the 18th century. Unfortunately, it still happens today sometimes too, but I just hate seeing Jamie and Claire suffering all of this. Literally for doing nothing. They are just witnesses to this, but because fingers were pointed and circumstances unfortunately line up, they're the ones dealing with all of the consequences. And it's awful. I don't know how it's gonna go in the final episode. And they are filming season 7 now, so I'm curious if they're going to continue the storyline into season 7. I don't know. I'm afraid. I don't know what's gonna happen. But hopefully we'll have some kind of resolution. I'm really hoping for that. Because oftentimes Outlander tries to end on a hopeful note, but this season might not because it was a shorter season, hence why it might continue into season 7. But we'll just have to see. What do you guys think about the safety committee, whatever they are? The BS committee, can we call them that? I am not looking forward to episode 8, in all honesty. It looks very bleak. And I hate that Richard Brown is he's in a place of power right now, which is not good, because you know he wants to get revenge on Jamie and Claire for what happened to his brother, even though his brother was 100% in the wrong. But you know, again, 18th century pride. Yeah, so it's not going to be a pretty episode, but hopefully things will get resolved. But yeah, final episode, guys, and then we have another Outlander, which hopefully won't be as long this time. I think they're planning to have season 7 premiere next year. If we're lucky, it'll be like maybe February, March again next year. So it won't be as bad. I am definitely looking forward to all the work that they are putting into the show, especially for season 7. It looks like that scene that we're dreading a little bit is going to be coming up. It looks like Bree, Roger, and the fam are going to be going back to 20th century. Looks like Mandy is there. Looks like Bree's cradling her in her arms, which it's going to be a bittersweet moment, I'm sure. But I'm not sure which standing stones they're at. It doesn't look familiar. If you guys have any information on that, is it the same standing stones that they went to in the season 5 subplot, or is this a different set of stones? I don't even know at this point. But yeah, let me know. I'm curious. But yeah, also, I am planning to do something fun for the final video, and hopefully it'll all work out. I definitely am excited for this because I don't just do artwork, but I also do costuming, which definitely is a passion of mine. That's why I adore the costumes on the show. Even if they're not 100% accurate, I love that they have taken the idea of the 18th century fashion and they've made it their own. And I appreciate that. But yeah, I definitely can't wait to show you guys that next video, and yeah, final episode, final video for the season, and season 7 coming soon. Alright guys, leave a comment, let me know what you guys thought of the episode, what you guys think is going to happen in the finale, and I will see you for the final episode of season 6. Alright guys, have a good week. I will see you soon. Bye!